Pacific National is the main freight operator in all of Australia. They have this very distinct blue and yellow livery, but amongst the locos, you may find an engine in a green and yellow livery. This livery would be the now defunct Freight Australia. The history of Freight Australia starts in 1994, where V-Line started to contract out some of their regional lines to private contractors. This was their first step to fully private operation, rather than government-owned operations. In 1995, freight and passenger trains were fully separated, with V-Line Passenger getting a new blue and red livery, while V-Line Freight stuck with V-Line's tangerine livery. This was finalized in June of 1997. V-Line Freight was sold off for private ownership 2 years later, in March of 1999. It was now owned by a consortium of Rail America, Fluoro Daniels, Macquarie Bank, and Agoni & Co., and rebranded as Freight Victoria. The sale included locomotive maintenance centres at South Dynon, Wodonga, Geelong and Portland, as well as 107 locomotives and around 2,800 wagons, as well as a 45-year lease on just under 4,800 kilometers of track in renewable 15-year segments. The state government was hesitant to sell the rights to the track infrastructure, but was swiftly persuaded. Soon, regular broad gauge freight trains would run all across Victoria, carrying logs from Gippsland, delivering paper from Maryvale, which is still being ran today, transporting gravel from Kilmore East, shipping grain throughout the state, as well as general freight all across most of the state. In October of 1999, Freight Victoria took part in tomfoolery and decided to start hauling freight to Queanbeyan, Port Kembla, and Wallarang, towns not in Victoria, though then named Freight Victoria. Next year, in March, realizing their irony, they changed their trading name to Freight Australia. In April of 2000, Freight Australia began exporting grain from Victoria to other states such as New South Wales and Perth, but Perth services were operated by SCT Logistics with leased stock from Freight Australia. Some more services were rostered, such as fuel shipments from the Clyde Oil Refinery to West Tamworth, Dubbo, and even Canberra. Domestic grain exports from the New South Wales Riverina, Port Kembla, or Appleton Dock, to sporadic log trains from Canberra to Port Kembla, cement from Berrima to Melbourne. As part of the deal for Freight Australia, 107 locomotives and 2,800 goods wagons, previously owned by Victorian Railways and their successors, were leased to them. Although the selection wasn't great, with the newest, the G-Class, being built last decade, with most of the other engines dating far back as the 1950s. With traffic growing exponentially, Freight Oz decided to upgrade their prime motive power to increase their horsepower to 3,800 horsepower, as much as the G. Starting with the older X-Classes, which was stripped down to their frames and rebuilt as XRs, and a single locomotive was purchased, a Downer EDI Rail GT46C, also known as V544, which was a new build in 2002, to replace two written-off G-Classes in the 2000 Ararat locomotive crash. An additional 100 grain hoppers were also acquired, sourced from new builds by Alstom at Ballarat, second-hand grain hoppers from Freight Corp, and the conversion of surplus vans into log and flat containers, 2 Gs and 2 Xs were also transferred to the CRT group to help fulfill a requirement on their contract. Let's now go through what they acquired from V-Line. 6 rebuilt B classes, dubbed A classes, all 32 G classes, all 5 H classes, 5 of the rebuilt T classes, dubbed P classes, a single RSL road and rail vehicle, 5 of the 18 S classes, 12 of the 94 T classes, a single GT46C or V out of the 24 built, all 24 X classes, which 6 of them were rebuilt and converted to XR classes, and 20 of the 75 Y class shunters. In 2003, being a relatively new company, Freight Australia was officially put up for sale. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, ACCC, looked at the sale with concern, fearing that Pacific National would start a monopoly in the rail freight industry. Other potential buyers included Australian Railroad Group, Queensland Rail, and merchant bank Babcock and Brown. In July of 2004, Rail America announced it had agreed terms with Pacific National to sell the business, just what ACCC had feared. Although they did not oppose the sale, and it was still allowed to go through. In August, the Victorian government transferred the Freight Australia leases to Pacific National. Although little of the freight contracts to Freight Australia remained with Pacific National. Most opted for road, and some contracted other rail freight operators. Contracts lost to the other operators include the Berrima Cement Service, lost to Cube, the Deniliquin Rice, also lost to Cube, the Maryvale Paper, lost to Cube again, Allied Mills and Emerald Grain, lost to Short Haul Southern Railroad, and the Apex Quarry Service, lost to Cube. Quite a bit of Freight Australia still remains. Most locomotives, after the buyout, still retain the Freight Australia livery, and some still run with it today. Since services were run with historically significant rolling stock, a lot of engines were also preserved, such as the S's, H's, X, P, and T's. Hehe, see what I did there? A lot of the grain hoppers and general rolling stock would still wear the Freight Australia green, and a lot of rail lines operated by Freight Australia are now in the care of Pacific National. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you like this video about Freight Victoria. If you have any suggestions on what video I should do next, then leave a comment below. If not, like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.